All right, welcome everyone. As a senior faculty lead here in the Walker College of Business, I wanted to put together this strategic brief specifically for you, our professional track students at Appalachian State. Look, the goal here is pretty straightforward, to equip you with a decision-making framework, a real playbook that you can actually use out there in your careers in advertising and PR. So today's session is structured exactly like a playbook. We're going to move through 6 core learning objectives, basically mirroring your course materials. We'll kick things off with the different types of advertising, then dive into how you actually develop a campaign. After that, we'll talk about who's in charge, and then pivot to public relations, what it is, the tools of the trade, and crucially, how you know if it's even working. Let's jump right in. Okay, so let's dive into our foundations. First things first, right? You absolutely have to master the fundamental language and classifications of advertising before you can even think about building a winning strategy.
So yeah, that's the official textbook definition. But let's be real. In practice, advertising is so much more than just, well, promotion. It's really all about influencing purchase behavior, for sure. But maybe even more importantly, it's about building that long-term brand equity.
So here's a great way to think about this. Let's take a local giant, a North Carolina company like Bank of America. When you see one of their ads, what are they really doing? Are they trying to sell you a specific checking account? Or are they working on something bigger, like building an image of community, trust, and stability? That right there, that's the core distinction we're talking about.
And the strategic context here is absolutely crucial.
Pioneer advertising, its job is to educate the entire market. It's literally creating the playing field from scratch. Then you have competitive advertising, which is all about fighting for market share within that field. It's a great way to think about it. One type of advertising builds the pie, and the other fights for the biggest slice. Okay, so now we're moving from the what to the how. This is really the heart of the playbook, you guys. We're talking about the strategic process for actually building an advertising campaign. And let me tell you, this is a core competency for any marketing professional, period. Think of this flowchart as your roadmap. Seriously, this is it. Imagine you're on the marketing team at a place like SAS Institute, right there in Cary. This is the process you would follow. It's your step-by-step guide from figuring out who you're talking to, all the way to measuring if anything you did actually worked. Now, we could spend a whole semester on each of these steps, no joke, but for our purposes today, in this playbook, we're going to zoom in on a few of the really critical steps. Specifically, we're going to focus on how you allocate your resources, your money, and how you pick your channels. So, step 4, deciding on your budget. We call this the advertising appropriation, and honestly, this is one of the most critical decisions you'll make. It determines the scale, the scope, the potential impact of your entire effort. And how you do it? Well, that's a huge strategic choice in itself. All right, step 5, the media plan. This is where the rubber meets the road, people. This is where your high-level strategy actually hits the market. It's all about one thing, getting the right message in front of the right eyeballs at the right time, without completely blowing your budget. Okay, now look at this. What's absolutely fascinating here is the trend line. See that crossover point? That moment when digital media time officially surpassed traditional media. That's huge. As a marketer heading into the workforce, you have to understand where your audience's attention is actually going right now today. And this slide right here brilliantly illustrates the financial reality behind that attention shift. It proves that old saying is 100% true. The money follows the eyeballs. This isn't just a little trend, folks. This is a massive, fundamental restructuring of the entire global advertising economy. So what does this all mean? It means choosing the right tool for the job is everything. Each channel has its pros and cons, right? So let's make this real. How would this data change the media plan for a legacy brand like Hanes Brands compared to, say, a digital native powerhouse like Cary's own Epic Games? Think about it. The answer to that question is your strategy. Okay, quick pivot here. We've talked about what a campaign is and how to build one. Now let's briefly touch on who actually does all this work. And the answer really depends on the size and resources of the company. For a tiny startup, it might be one person doing everything. For a massive organization, you'll have a whole in-house department. And for a lot of companies, including huge ones like Lowe's, it's a partnership with an external advertising agency that brings all those specialized skills to the table. All right, let's shift gears completely and talk about a parallel discipline, public relations. You've probably heard the old saying, advertising is what you pay for, PR is what you pray for. And it's so true. Advertising is paid media. PR is all about earning media and managing those critical relationships. Now, the key word here, the one I want you to really lock onto, is stakeholders. See, PR isn't just about customers. It's way broader than that. We're talking employees, investors, the community, everyone. It's a function that organizations like the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits rely on heavily to manage not just their image, but their entire mission. So, when we talk about PR, what are we actually talking about? What's in the toolbox? Because I can tell you, it is way more than just writing a press release and crossing your fingers. All of these tools, from brochures to big speeches, have one goal: to build a consistent, favorable image and hopefully generate some positive coverage that you didn't have to pay for. You see it all the time, right? When a great local brand like Highland Brewing Company sponsors a big event in the region. Yep, that's PR in action.
And this is so important to understand. This is the big strategic trade-off with publicity. On the one hand, you get incredible credibility. Why? Because a story in the news feels more real, more trustworthy than a paid ad. But here's the catch. To get that credibility, you have to give up control. You don't get to approve the final story. It's a huge gamble.
Okay, and this brings us to our final section. And honestly, it might be the most critical piece of the puzzle. We're talking about measurement. How do you evaluate effectiveness? Because at the end of the day, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. It's as simple as that. So when you see terms like environmental monitoring or social audit, don't think of them as just stuffy academic exercises. No way. These are the tools that give you the hard data you need. They tell you if your PR efforts are actually working, if you're shaping public perception the way you want to, or if your message is just, falling on deaf ears. And this quote, man, this says it all. It really drives home why PR is so incredibly critical. It's not just about getting good press. It's also about defense. It's about protection. Because all that goodwill, all that positive brand equity you spent years building, it can be wiped out in a single afternoon, forcing you to pivot from promotion to pure crisis management. So I want to leave you with this question. As you go out into your careers, and I know so many of you are already balancing work and school, this is a situation you could genuinely face. A crisis hits. The phone rings. Who do you call first? The lawyers or the PR team? Seriously, think about it. Because your answer to that question says everything about what your organization truly values: managing legal risk or managing public trust. That's the ballgame.